In question 8 we're given the following inheritance diagram and we're told that the length of eyelashes is controlled by a single gene. Okay, so we're told that information, and this shows the reflection of that inheritance in a family with the circles representing females and squares representing males, and dark and light reflecting long or short lashes respectively. Okay, so the length is controlled by the single gene, and we're asked to work out which individual A through E, so some of the individuals are labelled, must be heterozygous for eyelash length. So that's what we need to work out. So the first thing to identify is the pattern of inheritance of the single gene. And in order to work this out, we can have a look here and see that despite our parents here happening to both have long eyelashes, some of the offspring still had short eyelashes. So this proves that this must be a dominant form of inheritance. Why is that? Well, if these were recessive, if the trait was recessive, then that would mean that these two parents must be homozygous recessive, since the recessive genes only express themselves in the homozygote form. So that means that the only genes in the gene pool for these three offspring would be recessive genes, since both would be homozygous recessive. Well, we know that's not the case, since some happen to not carry the trait. Therefore, not all offspring are homozygous recessive, as you'd expect from a homozygous recessive cross. Therefore, we know that the gene must be transferred through another mechanism, which is the dominant mechanism. So these happen to have at least one copy of the dominant allele, which, when present, is always expressed. And that also means, by implication, that all the individuals which don't have long lashes must be homozygous recessive for the recessive form of the gene, which is short lashes. So now that we've broken that down, we're a bit closer to identifying which individual A through E must be heterozygous. Now, what would compel us to think that one of our individuals would be heterozygous? Well, let's look at some of these test crosses. So when it comes to these two, the female A and her partner here, they both have one copy of the dominant allele, and yet they have given birth to individuals B and D, which are homozygous recessive. Now they received one allele from each of their parents, and given that they are homozygous recessive, that means they must have received one recessive allele from each of their parents. So, given that information, we know that A and A's partner must be heterozygous. Regardless of the phenotype of C, we know that A and the partner must be heterozygous, because no matter what the genotype of C, they may even be homozygous dominant. Well, that's explicable because both have the dominant form of the allele, and they both have the recessive form of the allele, which explains individuals B and D. So we know our answer must be A to some extent, but can we explain the same for instance, individual E? So in the case of individual E, they have an offspring which has the dominant form of the allele, and they carry the dominant form themselves. So that means, conceivably, even if the offspring might be heterozygous, E could still be homozygous dominant or heterozygous. It's not a necessity, given that they have at least one copy of the dominant form of the allele, whereas in the case of B and D, they do not. Therefore, A must have the recessive form. So our answer is individual A must be heterozygous, and the same goes for his partner. So the answer is A.